Okay, it's been a little while, but it's time to make some tea. I really want to use this teapot. This one's really nice, but just take a look at that. I don't think that's gonna work. Tea. Day 61, numbers 21 through 22. Chapter 21 is kind of like a sandwich. What I mean by that is it starts out with some of Israel's conquest as they're dealing with other nations around them and conquering them. Then there's a really important story in the middle. And then the chapter wraps up with more conquest and Israel conquering certain kings and nations. But the story that's in the middle is one that's very familiar, and it's the story of when the people of Israel were complaining, and God brings serpents into their midst and bites them. And the only way that they would be healed of the venom of the serpents was if they looked to a bronze serpent that was up on a post that God told Moses to make, and if the people looked at it, they'd be healed. Then in chapter 22, we see the beginning of the narrative of Balak and Balaam. Balak was king of Moab, and up until this point, everyone heard about the people of Israel. They're a ton of people, they're conquering these nations, and Balak had reason to be fearful. So he summons Balaam, who is a prophet, and he recruits this prophet to essentially proclaim cursing upon these people, thinking that would give victory over the people of Israel. This story is it's crazy. There's a lot of crazy things that happen here. So Balaam, while it has been communicated and it's talked about in future passages that he is a false prophet, seems to have this type of relationship with God. The servants of Balak come to him and make the request, and Balaam is basically like, well, let me talk to the Lord first and see what he says, which is really interesting. Then God tells him not to go up with them, and he listens. But what happens is Balak sends even more noble princes to him to convince him to come up that he might proclaim cursing upon Israel. This time the Lord tells him to go, and as he's going, he's riding his donkey, and three times, only the donkey sees this angel of the Lord and is, freaking out and going different directions. And Balaam is just angry with this donkey. On the third time, it says that the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and the donkey talked to Balaam. Now if I'm Balaam, I'm like, oh my goodness, this animal is speaking. This is crazy. But you see Balaam interacting with the donkey as if he already knew that the donkey spoke his language. It's just crazy. Then finally, Balaam sees the angel of the Lord, and he falls on his face and is just like, just terrified. But then God tells him, all right, I still want you to go up to Balak. I want you to go up with his princes to him, but I want you to do everything that I tell you to do. And then they go up to Balak. Balak's like, hey, what took you so long? Balaam's like, I'm here, and I have to say what it is that the Lord wants me to say. Then the chapter wraps up with they brought Balaam up to this place where they saw a few of the people of Israel. We'll get more into the story of Balaam and Balak over the next couple of days, but I really wanted to hone in on chapter 21, verses 4 through 9, which is where we see the story of the people being bitten by snakes, but then being healed when they look to the bronze serpent. This very event is talked about by Jesus himself when Jesus is speaking to Nicodemus, like in the middle of the night, and it's in the context of God explaining to Nicodemus about what it means to be born of the Spirit. And Nicodemus was a leader. He was confused by this. And Jesus, that concerned Jesus, is like, you being a ruler of the people, why are you confused by this truth? And we see this in John chapter 3. And John chapter 3, verse 13 through 15 talks about how just as the bronze servant was lifted up in the wilderness, and when the people looked at it that they were healed, so too the Son of Man must be lifted up. And in his being lifted up, and particularly being lifted up on the cross, and dying on the cross, going to the grave and rising 3 days later, as people would look to Jesus and believe in Jesus and trust in Jesus, this is what saves them. And so once again, we see so beautifully how God's word really points to and culminates in Jesus Christ. Gotta head to Office Depot because I lost my pens again. Gosh, this is getting expensive. Stop losing my pens. And that's it for today. Time to go work out. I know I said I was gonna end the video right there, but I do need to work out. All I've had today is a cannoli. I wonder how that will affect my workout.